He's 30 years old and married, and I'm expecting a child, 23. I graduated from college in March and began applying for employment the following month. As a result of the large number of people who were laid off and the large number of people who worked from home, it was virtually impossible to find work in my industry. When the employment market in my state opened up just before the 4th of July last year, I took a position as a bartender. The money is excellent, which explains why I'm still doing it more than a year later. My manager and I became fast friends very soon after meeting. We worked really long shifts together, and he was always there to save my behind from weird customers. We only have bouncers on the weekend. By September, we were sleeping in the same bed and hanging out in the parking lot outside of work. He was not pleased when I told him I was expecting a child in August. I was very taken aback and didn't know what to think or feel. He informed me that he required additional space. It was something I respected. We didn't even have a serious conversation at work. We only exchanged a few words. After a few weeks had passed, he apologized and explained that he had never planned on having children after getting married, but that I would make a wonderful mother and that he supports my decision, but that an abortion made more sense to him than continuing the pregnancy. I informed him that after much deliberation, I was leaning toward keeping the kid because I have a strong support network and a nice income to fall back on. Throughout the next couple of weeks, he would bring up the subject of abortion on a few occasions. He brought it up so much one night that I had to kick him out. He contacted me afterwards to express his regret and explain that he was simply stressing out. I understood where he was coming from since, like him, I still get anxious from time to time. He was extremely inebriated at work last night, which was unusual for him. He wanted to drive himself home, but I confiscated his keys and instructed him to just stay with me for the time being. By the time we leave the bar, it's a little after 3:30 a.m., and he's been on the phone with someone named Kim for at least 10 minutes during the 15-minute journey to my house. When I inquire as to who Kim is, he informs me that she is a buddy. I'm thinking, wait a minute, you've never mentioned her before. He attempted to begin, but he is unable to do so due to his condition. I'd inquire once more about Kim's identity. He tells me to relax and that it is none of my business. Sus, you're all set. He's never been like this before. When I ask him again who Kim is, he screams in my face that she is his wife and that she is aware of my being in the building. I'm thinking, you're not humorous at all. What is her name? He claims that he was only wanting to have a good time and that I wrecked it by becoming pregnant. I should have had an abortion, but I didn't. I didn't put it together sooner. I eject him from the house and actually have a breakdown for hours because of it. However, now that I think about it, there was one pretty evident red sign that pointed me in the direction of his marital status. We'd only meet up at my house if it worked out. He explained to me that his roommate suffered from some sort of autoimmune illness and that he had to wear a mask whenever he was in the house, which meant he couldn't have guests around. It made sense to me at the time since everything was so new and unfamiliar. This was last Sept. I called in sick to work and am about to resign. But what is the point? Because of this jerk, my life has become a full and total mess. He most certainly has a wife. I sought her up on Instagram, and fortunately for me her page wasn't private, so I was able to cry for hours tonight while looking at photographs of their wonderful existence. Update. First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to those who were sincere in their kindness and provided sound counsel. You have made a significant difference in my life and have greatly aided me in determining my next steps. In response to the people who were incredibly nasty to me and called me names, told me I wasn't poor, wanted to break up his marriage, forced him to go home with me, that I was treating a child like a pet, that I was requiring my mother to raise my child for me, and so on. I truly hope something like this, maybe not a pregnancy, but something where you're completely beside yourself and need help to process it before talking to anyone in your real life, does not happen to you, and in the event that I were a weaker person or suffered from an ailment, I can assure you that I would have been okay after reading around 3/4 of the comments I read today. Behind this screen is a real person, and I'm here to help you. Remember that words have repercussions, so consider your words carefully before sharing them with someone. Also, consider whether you would accept that advice if it were given to you. I'm not looking for sympathy, and I believe I said in my OP or in the comments that I recognize that I'm at least largely at fault. It is true that it takes two to tango, but I was always authentically myself and accepted him at his word. This was hardly a one-night stand. Instead, it lasted for more than a year. I believed I knew who he was, but several people in the comments pointed out that I only knew him as the person he presented himself as. When I posted my OP, I had just known he was married for 18 hours, and I had sobbed for the majority of those hours, so please excuse my lack of appropriate responses, as well as my feelings of anger, hurt, and betrayal. I've also made it quite obvious that I do not want an abortion, and the number of people who have told me that I should have an abortion isn't horrible. I will not be coerced into doing anything by strangers on the internet or by him in any manner. It's true that he'd indicated a wish for me to have an abortion, but when I retorted, he generally dropped the subject and say something like he's terrified, or that it was my decision. Again, never once did he actually put it on the table, though I did ask him about it when I first found out because I had thought about it myself, and it told me he wasn't ready to talk about it and wanted time to think about it further. He had the opportunity to speak up at that point, but he decided not to. I also called in sick to work today and spoke with my boss, who also happens to be the owner. He inquired as to whether it had anything to do with my managers drinking at work and whether he had damaged me. He was unaware of our connection with him. He stated that he had received a few calls from regulars who were concerned about him, and when I told him what I had learned, he was astonished, to say the least. He informed me that he had previously spoken with him earlier in the day and had advised him to take a few days off since his wife had discovered that he was cheating on him, but that he had never suspected it was with him. My owner was quite gracious and encouraged me to take a few weeks off to myself to straighten things out, and he would be delighted to have me back. However, I would not be working on the same days as my boss, which was disappointing. I informed him that I needed more time to consider the situation. And no, I was not informed that he was married. When they were forced to close for 3 to 4 months last year, they lost a significant portion of their workforce and have had difficulty recruiting replacements. Apart from him, there is just one other person who has returned, and she is who is unable to communicate effectively in English. I also went to my parents' house, where I am now currently located, and chatted with my father. As a criminal defense attorney, he offered some guidance and put me in touch with one of his family law colleagues, so I'm going to sit down with him on Tuesday. They'll be off tomorrow for the holiday, and attempt to figure things out. Also, my father has offered to let me move to my parents' vacation house in Colorado, which is far away, and start again without him, but I would be on my own because I would not have any assistance. He's also going to make some phone calls to friends tomorrow to see if he can get me a job in my industry that isn't in the same city as him as well. I also want to add that my parents were aware of the baby's existence before to this and have met him numerous times. Because my mother and I would both be working, she volunteered to look after the baby while I returned to work. I never put any pressure on her to have the baby. The reason she offered was that this would be her first grandchild. She's overjoyed, well, not now.